Hello, and welcome to the summer season finale of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This is part one of a two-part special episode where we celebrate the work of Christopher Nolan and talk about what he means to us as a vessel of entertainment, and just how we feel about our experiences while watching his movies. And so basically we're going to kick things off with kind of running down the line and see what everyone here on the panel thinks of it. By the way, my name is Matt, your host, at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter. I'm joined with Mike, at I am Mike White, and Tiny, at Obsessive Tiny. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Obsessive Viewer, online, anywhere. So, all right, to get things kicked off, all right, well, we've reached The Dark Knight Rises. It's the end of the Dark Knight trilogy, the legend, as it was called. A lot of, as with any third entry in a franchise or in a trilogy, there was a lot of divisive opinions about it, and so I'm actually very eager to talk about this one with you guys because I loved it. It wasn't quite as good as The Dark Knight, and it kind of suffered in that The Dark Knight. What made it so great was, for me, was Heath Ledger as Joker was just phenomenal, and Tom Hardy as Bane. He was just, I thought he knocked it out of the park. And I said this to Tiny after we saw it the second time, at IMAX actually, was that it's his performance is so, people remark that Tom Hardy's performance is hampered by the fact that he's wearing a mask, but I think that enlivens his performance slightly because you can see his emotion. He emotes strictly from about 30% of his face, and it's all in the eyes. Like if you see in the movie, he doesn't blink hardly at all. Like he blinks maybe in 2 scenes, and it's very emotionally driven scenes. So I loved it. I loved the movie. Thought it was very a fitting end to it. What do you guys think?
You want to defer to me?
Absolutely.
I loved it too. I had a lot to say about it. I remember the morning after. I don't even know that I got a full 8 hours of sleep after that midnight. But we got on, Matt, to make a point to Skype each other and talk about it. To iChat.
That's true.
And I had a lot to say. I really, really, really enjoy the movie. I love it. I think I would put it above Batman Begins in the list of the 3 movies if we're doing that. I don't know that matters, but
I think I would too.
Yeah, and as a whole, it's great. My big problem with it, and the thing that bugged me the most, was people's reaction to the ending.
Yeah,
it really, really, really bugged me. The squeals in the theater when they called Joseph Gordon-Levitt Robin, when he says use my real first name, Robin. That bothered me so much, and I kind of got over it because I talked it out with a lot of people, and I like the idea that essentially John Blake was being Robin throughout the movie. He was a sidekick, but I didn't like that people thought that Bruce Wayne would come back as Batman and he would be Robin, and now Robin is going to be Robin, even though his name is Robin, and no Robin has ever been actually named Robin. It was just a mess. And I thought it was, and I analyzed it in 2 ways. I thought at first that it was Nolan just like paying fan service and saying, here's Robin, let's see what you think of that. But I also think it's his way of, the whole time leading up to the movie, he was saying that there would be no Robin in my movies. It's kind of like saying, well, yeah, there is Robin, not the Robin you were looking for. You know what I mean? Like, all you get is that some guy's first name is Robin. I think it was almost like a jab at those people who wanted it so badly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a little back and forth with it. I think it was more just a cheeky thing, like, hey, he's kind of Robin, so let's just do that. Let's make him Robin. But
I
don't know,
I literally heard the reaction. Ooh, he's gonna be Robin.
People.
And that was my problem.
Yeah.
That's understandable that annoyed you. That would have annoyed me too. I didn't. My personal reaction was just when I saw it, I just kind of laughed. I was like, "That's funny."
Yeah,
and I think that was the intention. It was just, I don't even know if I would call it fan service. I just think it was like a fun little thing to throw in there. Just,
Yeah,
you know, that's how I viewed it, anyways.
I mean, there was a gasp in the theater.
Oh God,
he's gonna be Robin.
I honestly I didn't like the fans being like, well, no, he's John Blake, he's not Robin. That was like it seemed like it was just totally like it ruined the movie for them that the character's name is actually Robin. Mm-hmm. The kind of because there was some outcry about that, and I felt like that was more like I'm just like this is Nolan's Batman saga. It's not very factual it's not very. It's a loose adaptation of the comics.
It's not canon. It's not accurate.
It's not.
Right.
They're not going for accuracy, and just because a character is in spirit Robin and in name doesn't mean that he needs to be Dick Grayson or whatever.
And even more, he's not going to be Robin. He is almost certainly going to be Batman.
Right.
You know, or an interpretation
or whatever.
of Batman.
Right. People said, "Oh, what about Nightwing?" And then it was like, well, okay, I guess. Yeah. Some interpretation of Batman,
yeah. Real briefly, because we need to talk about the actual movie. Also, how did you, Mike, you specifically, or both of you, how did you feel about what if? I mean, it's moot now, but how would you have felt if they had said we're going to have Joseph Gordon-Levitt play Batman in the Justice League movies, and we're going to have it tie in with the Nolan universe?
Big problem.
Really see my bias towards Joseph Gordon-Levitt would be excited because I think he's fantastic. So I would be excited in that for that, but it would be kind of silly, I guess. I guess for continuity reasons, it would be kind of cool, but I don't know. I guess I would like it, but I don't know if I'm really the best authority to comment on it. So I will defer to Mike.
Yes, our resident comic book nerd.
Yes.
As much as I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt, to start a Justice League franchise with a starting movie, it would really lack something if your Batman was not Bruce Wayne. Severely, it would severely lack something.
That's
Good
true.
point.
If that was the case, and I don't. I think it would be very unwise to do that because I think even casual fans would cry foul that Bruce Wayne is not Batman at the start of a Justice League movie. You know, Bruce Wayne founded the Justice League, so that you know, that's just plenty of people would cry foul.
Fair point. Yeah,
Okay.
I just like the idea of Joseph Gordon-Levitt being in anything, really.
Sure,
me
like
too.
I said, I would love to see, while the origin is not the way I would like to see it, if they just said, hey, we're going to do Nightwing or whatever, I would watch it. Or if it was like John Blake's Batman, I would watch that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool.
So let's get into the meat and bones of the actual movie. Gotham Under Siege. I personally just loved that. I thought it was a great bookend to a trilogy that was very much about Bruce Wayne fighting for the survival of his city.
Yep.
And I felt like seeing that city just completely destroyed and at its deepest depth, or at its hardest, at its most rock bottomness, was just. I thought it was a very ballsy and just really, really interesting way to go about concluding a trilogy.
Yeah, I like the way you said that he had to save Gotham, because in the first film he prevents an attack. In the second film, he stops an attack that's in progress. Where essentially the Joker's trying to hold the city hostage. And in the third film, he's trying to reverse a successful attack. You know, it's the city's lost; it's gone. He has to save it. You know, it's very they're very it's a very tight progression of risk to the city of Gotham. It's an evolution that the plots go through. It's prevention, and then it's saving, and it's all these different. They're very different, but they're very similar. It has both aspects to it. That's what I liked about the plot, as far as the conflict plot of the films, the whole trilogy.
Good analysis. Yeah. I like that. I like the idea of the evolution of the city under siege and Bruce Wayne, Batman,
Me too.
defending, stop lossing, and then rebuilding.
Right.
Yeah.
Progressively, you know.
I like that.
That's
I like
cool.
it a lot.
I like that.
I didn't intend it when I said it like that. I didn't intend that analysis when I said saving the city, but now that you say that, that's spot on.
Cool.
I like it. I like it, and I'm going to take credit for it.
But yeah, I loved seeing Gotham that way too, and I think it was cool that they chose. I think out of necessity more than anything, but they chose to shoot it in Pittsburgh instead of Chicago, like the first two. It felt like a different city when it was under the rule of Bane, and actually, if you want to be technical, it's under the rule of the people.
Right. Right.
But when it had descended into chaos, it was an entirely different city. So it was kind of cool that they shot it at a different city.
That's true, and also, and also to point out, they also shot it out of tax reasons.
Yeah, and plus, I think Nolan's actual reasoning was they had literally shot every inch of Chicago.
Yeah,
so they had nothing else to go on.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder how much of that is rhetoric, like how much they're selling that they want to make Gotham difficult to identify, and then how much of it was tax reason and this and that. You know what I mean? Because they definitely were like, well, we wanted to make sure that you couldn't say it's this or that or this, you know. But it's pretty clearly Chicago in The Dark Knight. So so that's difficult. That's difficult for me to believe.
Right.
So,
true. Talk about real quick this is spoilers. You know, we're in spoiler country here, guys. Talia al Ghul. Something that I thought that I didn't pick up on this the first few times I saw it, and I don't think I even picked up on it until I saw someone mention it online. But when she and Bruce are in his mansion, and after they've just banged, she literally, this is before we know her true nature, they show her actually starting a fire in the fireplace. Like, she stokes the fire and she starts a fire, and I just think that's a great visual foreshadowing or visual indicator of it, and it's the kind of depth that you don't really see in a lot of comic book movies.
Symbolic imagery.
There you go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I liked the twist. I didn't see it coming, even though I should have. Because
me too.
Like, the whole time I was like, okay, well, all right, Bane is Ra's al Ghul's son, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's cool. I mean, yeah, and it just never really struck with me. It never really hit me that, oh wait, he did have a kid. Oh yeah, there's a woman. But I loved it. I thought it was cool.
I think go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to talk about that The Dark Knight Rises had one of, if not my absolute favorite scenes in the entire trilogy, actually.
Please be the scene I'm thinking of. Go ahead.
It's the scene where there is no music, right? And Batman and Bane fight for the first time. It's just awesome. It's awesome how he tears him down, and it's so real looking that I suspect somebody got roughed up.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite sequence of the entire trilogy, and one of my favorite sequences of Nolan's entire career. I just love it. It's just that the atmosphere, and what's crazy about it is I've sang Hans Zimmer's praises a lot, and it's just amazing to me that there's none of him in that.
Nothing.
Right.
It's
Like,
the
there's no
sounds
music.
of the sewer. It's the sound of the water falling in the background. It's the sounds of the punches. It's just
A really-
awesome.
it's
Exactly.
A really cool set too,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
set at, and I agree that I think it's behind the zero gravity fight in Inception. I think it's Nolan's best work, in my opinion. And I agree. It's a lot of if you look at the I think that scene, the dialogue that Bane has in that scene is so haunting. It's like it's almost like a horror scene mixed with an action scene about how he talks about being born in darkness. And
Yes.
he's being both figurative and literal. It's a very chilling scene on so many levels. It's hard to watch.
Man,
Sticks with you.
we've mentioned horror a couple times. How great would a Chris Nolan psychological thriller horror movie be?
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Ooh,
That's a
it would be.
conversation for another
It is.
episode, because,
That would be great.
I mean, that would be amazing.
Totally.
I will say my initial I had a lot of feelings after watching the movie, and I thought about it a lot. But as I thought about it more, it was a really good movie, and I was satisfied with what they gave me. But it's not what I wished for after The Dark Knight was over. I think it was intentional. I think it was intended that Heath Ledger would be back as the Joker. Of course, his death is even more haunting in the line in The Dark Knight when he says, "I think the two of us are going to be doing this for a long time."
Right.
And of course they're not. That's a bummer for more reasons than just the world lost a great talent. But to the movie universe. But I was hoping to see like the Riddler.
Oh, man.
I think that would have made for a really good, twisty Nolan type plot.
I wanted so badly for the third movie to be where Batman goes up against the Riddler. Riddler finds out who he is and taunts him through just plays this mind game with him,
Right.
and like I wanted Riddler to be a sadistic serial killer who is trying to frame Batman for the murders or whatever, and is just taunting him. And I wanted it to be like a seven, like Seven, but in Batman.
Yeah. I just wanted a good depiction of the Riddler. As much as I love Jim Carrey, and I actually kind of do like Batman Forever, and I know we don't like to compare the two series, but
Right.
I do like Batman Forever, but Jim Carrey's Riddler is essentially the Joker in a green leotard.
Yeah.
And so to get a really good Riddler would be awesome.
Right.
One of my favorite parts about the film is how Bruce Wayne's attitude towards his role, his dedication to the city of Gotham. He says throughout the film, or he implies throughout the film, that he feels like he needs to die in order to fully. He feels like he has to make that sacrifice. And one of the things that I wanted from the film, it's what I wanted from the trilogy. I wanted Batman to die. That's actually what I wanted from the trilogy. I realize as far as the comics, that may not make a lot of sense, but I feel like for this trilogy specifically, I feel like he needed to die.
He did,
and essentially he did. That's what I was going to say. Essentially, that's what happened.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. I wanted Batman to die, and I think that's what we got. But I think Bruce Wayne felt like he needed to die. He felt like throughout the film that Bruce Wayne needed to die, but he didn't. It just had to be Batman. He forgot that. He forgot that he's a symbol, that Batman is a symbol, and that a symbol can be whatever you want it to be.
Right.
And that he could achieve that through the death of Batman, and he didn't need to die himself in order to achieve that.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, despite wanting the Riddler, and like I said, that would have been a completely different movie, obviously. I still feel like this was definitely a great end to I would say soon almost iconic trilogy in the long run, in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. Do you think in 10 years, 15 years, do you think we will remember the trilogy, or will people mostly just talk about The Dark Knight?
Ooh. It's a good question. I think people will talk about the trilogy because I feel like while The Dark Knight is so different from the first, I feel like the two sequels complement each other so well, and they're so similar that, you know, they're dark and gritty. All three of them are dark and gritty, but the two sequels have such a psychological aspect to them that I think people will just accept all of them as like one long movie almost. At least the two sequels will be viewed as like one long movie, in my opinion. So I feel like they'll talk about the trilogy as opposed to just The Dark Knight.
I think so too, and I think in the long run, Nolan's legacy will endure more than the trilogy itself. I hope that's my hope, at least.
Yeah,
right.
I think lay people will remember the trilogy. But as far as the industry, I think they've already forgotten The Dark Knight Rises. I think people still remember The Dark Knight. And when you hear famous people talk, people who work with the studios talk, they still just mention The Dark Knight. And, you know,
true.
And already I don't hear much about The Dark Knight Rises anymore.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Thanks. One of the things I missed from the trailers was the you are as precious to me as you were to your own mother and father.
I swore to them that I would protect you.
I would protect you. And I
haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't in the movie.
I wish it was. That's one of my main complaints with it. Is I wish that it was kept in the movie, because I wish that, because to have that in it and then have the ending with him crying at their grave, that it would have been tighter.
The line totally fits. The line
absolutely
did not need to be removed whatsoever.
Yeah,
it did. Yeah.
It's strange. It's strange.
It's too bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up really quickly that we've had 3 adaptations of the Batman character. We've had, you know, Schumacher and Nolan and Tim Burton. I think you couldn't really make the case that, you know, Nolan is not the best, because it is. His interpretation's the quintessential Batman. But I also think that those other 2 interpretations have value, in my opinion. I mean, it's very easy to pick on the Schumacher ones because they're so silly. But if you watch those movies, they were never intended to be taken seriously. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger makes like 7 freezing jokes in the movie. There's no way that people were supposed to sit there and watch it as like this serious drama, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like people kind of beat up on those a lot, and, you know, most of it is warranted, but I still think, you know what, just sit back and have a little bit of fun with it. I don't think they're that awful that we need to treat it as a redheaded stepchild, you know, just beat up on it, pick up on it all the time.
Well, I think the main issue people have is the stark contrast between those 2, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, in comparison to the original Batman and then the superior Batman Returns. You know what I mean? Those are very dark in tone, pretty serious, and that is very stark contrast, especially because they are direct sequels.
Yeah, the way I see it, and this is based on a conversation I had with a coworker of mine, and I can't corroborate his analysis of it, but he said that it was basically the studio saying, "Okay, we want to sell some Batman toys, so let's make a movie."
Toyification.
Yeah.
Yep, I believe it.
Yeah, so that could be at the heart of what's wrong with those movies, but that's for another podcast. Nolan successfully closed his trilogy, and now he's going to go do Interstellar and whatever else he has planned. And it's I feel like he did proper justice to the character of Batman and the world that he created for that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's good. I love it.
All right. Well,
Thank you, Chris Nolan.
Yes,
for all
thank
that
you,
you
Chris
do.
Nolan. If you ever want to be on a podcast, I mean, you can reach us.
Yeah.
We can work our schedules around you, Chris.
Yes.
If there's one podcast you do The Nerdist, because I want to hear what Chris Hardwick has to say.
That's
but if you
actually a
do
good point,
too,
yeah. But if you do too,
I love it.
you can contact us at Obsessive Viewer.
yeah. All right. Well, is that about wrap it up?
Wraps it up.
That's it.
All right. Sweet. Well, good talk, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Mike, why don't you share with us some of your thoughts about the work of Christopher Nolan?
Sure. And I also want to say, for starters, that I look how far we've come in a season.
Right?
It's good. I'm surprised we didn't do a clip show. Maybe next season.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, my first, my first real introduction to Chris Nolan as a director was probably Memento in college.
Yes.
Now, that's not to say I didn't first see Batman Begins in theaters, but I saw it because it was a Batman movie, not because it was a Chris Nolan movie. And I guess in the same sense, I didn't see Memento because it was a Chris Nolan movie. I saw it because our film teacher said that that's what we're going to watch.
Right. I remember I was very excited for you to see it, and I was very excited to see it in class.
You were, and rightfully so. I loved it. I loved it immediately, and that's kind of when I was aware of this Chris Nolan guy. And I can't place exactly when we watched it, but was it after the release of Batman Begins on DVD? It was.
Yeah.
It was second semester.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the Batman Begins DVD came out in October.
Mm-hmm.
So I had even watched Batman Begins again just for the Batmanness of it, which I loved. I love that movie. So, but anyway, it was after I watched the DVD of Batman Begins, and then I saw Memento and fell in love immediately. And I couldn't wait for The Dark Knight, which I guess was a ways down the way. So I saw The Prestige after that, which I loved.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's very good. So next up is 2010's Inception. It's I loved it. All its faults, it has some faults, but I feel like despite its faults, it's also nearly perfect in its entertainment value. Like, it is one of my desert island movies. I could watch this movie from beginning to end at any time. If I come across it on TV and I see it playing, I will watch it through to the end. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the story of, for the two people who haven't seen it or don't know about it, it's about a team of, it's a sci-fi heist movie that takes place in people's minds, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what did you guys think of Inception?
Go ahead, Mike.
You always defer to me.
I do.
That's okay. It's if I had to rank, it would be behind The Dark Knight, but pretty high up there. I want to give it to this movie for the bendiness of it. I also like the performances more than a lot of the other movies. If you kind of take Heath Ledger out of The Dark Knight, I think the performances as a whole in Inception are better. Maybe I guess because I'm comparing the main protagonist Leonardo DiCaprio to the main protagonist in The Dark Knight, Christian Bale, which doesn't get a whole lot of play in The Dark Knight. But I love Leonardo DiCaprio in that movie. I love the twistiness. The only thing to its detriment is its runtime for me. A lot of the other movies I've seen several times, and I just sometimes don't. I'm not able to squeeze in a 2.5-hour flick, as much as I would love to. Just watch this if it were on TV. I can't dedicate that much time to it. I wish I could because it's such a great movie, but I've seen it significantly fewer than a lot of the other movies.
Interesting. Tiny?
I love Inception. It holds a special place in my brain, not my heart, because it absolutely it destroyed my brain. It was the second time that Nolan really, reached in and jumbled my brain. I think it's, as far as structure goes, I think it's Nolan's best work, which is a very bold statement in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But like Mike said, it's not flawless because it's super exposition heavy. It kind of has to be, but the runtime of it is a factor as well. And I think not just the fact that it's 2.5 hours, but when you look at the first act is really long. The first act is like an hour long. It's crazy. It actually it's to the point where they get all the way into like the final dream, and there's like 45 minutes left in the movie. It's crazy. It's just way too long. There's too much talking. It does have flaws, but I think even those flaws are pretty cool to hear him talk about it and explain everything is still really cool, especially the first time you watch it. It's a detriment to it on repeat viewings because you already have all the information, but it's still just an amazing film. Besides once you get past that first act, the pacing is just unreal. The amount of intense action and drama that they pack into the last hour of that movie is borderline unprecedented, in my opinion. Just how much they were able to cram in there. It's an amazing film, and it's something that you can watch. Every time you watch it, you pick up something new, and I think that's indicative of only a few films ever. Honestly, 2001: A Space Odyssey comes to mind. Every time you watch it, you pick up something new from it. I think that is a special mark that very few films can achieve.
I agree. It's funny you say that about it being too long, both of you, because I feel like it's a very tight 2.5 hours. The actual heist that goes on doesn't start until, like you said, it's about an hour in. Because the first act is all set up and all that. But once that starts, I mean, it's just boom. I mean, I'm strapped in and ready to go.
It is a rocket ride from there.
It is. Yeah. It does go. I didn't mean to say that it drags.
Okay.
And I don't think Tiny is either. I think he's just kind of saying, like the first hour of it is pretty long exposition.
I got you.
And that it is hard to say, I'm going to sit down for 2.5 hours when you know what's coming. For me, it literally is just I have trouble watching a 2.5 hour movie anymore.
Right. I agree. Yeah. But I just feel like it doesn't feel like a 2.5 hour movie. I understand time constraints and all that, but I love it. I didn't have a problem with the length of it. Which is bizarre for me because I usually am one of those guys that's like, oh, this is 2.5 hours. Oh, okay. But I loved it. And even with the exposition heavy stuff, I mean, there are lines where I've seen the movie several times. And there's lines now that the only purpose behind them is to be exposition. And it's such, the ratio of exposition to actual like dialogue is staggering. I mean, it's way too high. Like there's too much exposition in it. And this goes back to it just being a summer blockbuster for trying to appeal to a mass audience, because I don't think it's that hard to follow.
I don't think so either.
I really don't. And it was just, I feel like it could have been cut out. Like, one of the cringiest lines in that movie is toward the end when they're at the fortress, at the snow fortress or whatever, which I, having now seen On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I kind of love that nod to Bond that that Nolan did. But there's a scene where Maul is in the fortress and Cobb and Ariadne are looking, and he has the gun. He has the sights trained on her as she's about to shoot Cillian Murphy. There's guys surrounding her, or there's guys surrounding Cillian Murphy, and he's picking them off. That's what it was. He's picking off the henchmen as they're trying to get to Cillian Murphy. And Ariadne's like, are you destroying parts of his subconscious? And he's like, no, they're just projections. They're not part of that. And it's like, we've been watching this movie for 2 hours, dude. We don't need that.
Right.
We don't need that line.
Those are reminders.
Yeah.
I call those reminders.
Yeah.
Just for the people who haven't been paying attention.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like I just feel like that if you pay attention, I feel like your faith should be rewarded.
People deserve that, don't
kind
they?
of wasn't. They do. Yeah.
Matt mentioned that some people think it's hard to follow, and I agree with what you said, that it's not hard to follow, but it does require a lot of effort to follow it. I'll put it that way.
It does.
You have to be
Sure.
very involved to follow it, and there are a lot of people who don't want to do that when they go see a movie, especially a big blockbuster summer movie like this, which we mentioned earlier about how Nolan can blend those two things really well. I think that was Mike's point, and that is true. I agree. This is probably one of the best examples of blending those two things, but some people just don't want that when they go see a movie like this. And for example, I feel like I'm our token gender reference guy, but I have yet to meet a woman who enjoyed the film.
Really?
My mom watched it. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Huh. My mom liked it a lot.
Interesting.
So it must just be me then, because my mom watched it, didn't like it. Several of my aunts and my cousins, a lot of other, like some of my friends' girlfriends and wives, they watched it and just they didn't think it was bad or anything. They were just like, yeah, I didn't like it. It was just it was crazy, and yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
I guess it's just me.
Well,
it is.
It's just
Go
my
ahead.
mom.
Yeah,
for the
maybe
most
that's
part. But that is interesting, and I agree. That's a discussion on gender.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
it's not necessarily. Well, I almost said it's not necessarily a guy movie, but I mean, we talked about his Nolan's gender, the way he writes genders in a very clear way, I guess.
Yeah, but I feel I feel like it's not. When you talk about the film, you can say that it has a very, very intense love story in it, because it does. But it's obviously it's one-sided. It's only from the male perspective, really,
right?
Because she's dead, but she's also kind of alive at the same time. It's a very unique. It's a very unique love story, and I think it's a one-sided one. So
we could ask my fiance what she thinks.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to get her in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Ask her. All right, let's ask her.
Okay.
Hey, Amanda. Come here really fast.
I like it.
So, Amanda, as a woman, and Amanda is my fiance, by the way. As a woman, what did you think of Inception? You didn't like it, right?
I did not like it, and I probably will never see it again.
Holy cow!
Wow.
Never see it again.
Bold statement.
Yeah. You won't even give it a chance?
I'm a very bold person.
But not bold enough to watch the movie.
No, I was saying to Mike before that whenever I saw it, I think my first mistake was seeing it at midnight. And if you know anything about me, I cannot stay up very late, especially a movie. I mean, it could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and if a movie's on, I usually fall asleep. But with Inception, it was just such a complicated movie that it was just really hard to follow.
Okay.
Is that the only time you've seen it?
That is the only time I've seen it, and I remember the beginning, and it didn't capture my attention right away. So I just kind of got bored with it, and I fell asleep for a little while, and I woke up and I saw the ending, and I missed probably a pretty good chunk, but I could piece together the entire movie, just in general, even though I missed a big old chunk. But I mean, I knew the gist of what happened.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know if you got all the intricacies and stuff.
I think I did. I mean, maybe not, because maybe that's why I don't like it that much. But I don't know. It's almost too intricate for me.
Okay. I made the point that it has I feel like it has something in it for the female audience, because there's a very intense love story in the movie. This guy goes the extra mile to essentially keep his dead wife alive so that he can spend time with her. Whenever I explain the movie to a woman or something, I say, it has a really good love story in it. So there's something in it for everybody. It's not just a guy movie or whatever. So
does
I don't know.
That make you want to see it at all, Amanda?
Yeah.
No. Mainly, I think because I don't know. There's just the complication of the movie, complicatedness of the movie is heavier than the romance story. So it's not. While I think that might pull in some female audience, for me, it was not nearly enough. And not that I'm not a chick flick crazy kind of person or anything. I like good movies, but just for me, just overall, Inception was not hitting the spot.
But then you mentioned, I mean, it was a midnight showing and you were tired. So were you? Let me ask you this: were you excited to see it in any way? Okay, you weren't.
I thought it would be cool. I mean, I would see the previews, and I thought that it looked really neat, the graphics and stuff. So I guess I was kind of interested. But I guess if that preview came out today, I would say, yeah, that looks really neat, but I probably won't ever see that movie. Because for me, it's not my kind of movie. I like, I don't like movies that it takes you so long to try to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And then the whole ending thing where it's just a big debate as to what happens, that's just not my kind of movie.
For Amanda, I think, and what I kind of get from being with her for a couple of years now is that for her, a movie really is about the escapism.
Okay.
You know what I mean? As a relaxation point.
Okay.
And I think when she has to do too much work, it's like work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see.
Definitely.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Amanda, have you ever seen Memento?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm not sure I even know what that's about.
Yeah.
What do you think of The Dark Knight?
The Dark Knight I like. And I saw that at midnight. Yeah. So I think that says something, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
I did like it. That's the only... I think I've tried to watch Batman Begins like 30 times, and I always fall asleep. But The Dark Knight I saw a couple times, and I liked it.
Interesting.
But I also had a big crush on Heath Ledger.
Uh-huh.
So,
oh, sure.
as the Joker.
Awkward.
Who didn't?
Ew. Weird.
So it's not so much that the movie, that Inception didn't have any... It wasn't the fact that it doesn't really have anything for women. It's just the fact that it wasn't really your thing, I guess.
Yes. Not my kind of movie at all.
Okay. Cool.
So you can't speak for women as a gender.
Right.
Probably not. I mean...
Do you know any girls who...
I don't know anybody that said they loved it. Maybe my sister liked it more than I did, but I mean, it's definitely not a movie that women talk about, I think.
Right.
I think we can all agree that, yeah, it's a good movie, but wouldn't put it on like a favorite list.
Okay.
Interesting.
Cool.
Huh.
Well, thank you for joining us, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
I love you, and I'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.
Stop it.
Goodbye.
Tiny, why don't you share with us your feelings toward Christopher Nolan and how you came about being a fan of his?
Sure. I think I first became a fan, much like Mike did, was when I saw Memento. But I saw it substantially earlier than Mike did.
Mm-hmm.
I think that movie came out in, I don't know, 2001 or 2 maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways,
2000.
saw it.
2000, sorry.
2000. Okay. I think I saw it probably in 02 or 03.
Oh, wow.
And, at the time I was young. I was just a freshman or sophomore in high school, so that's kind of a point in my life where I was sort of really developing my taste in movies, I guess. Because, you have favorite movies from when you were a kid, but I think that's just kind of how you were when you were a kid. It's not really indicative of how you're going to like movies when you're an adult. And that's just like kind of a point in my time where I was really getting into, I was starting to watch, Kubrick movies and older movies and stuff like that. I was just starting to develop a taste, and I think Memento was kind of instrumental in that because it's so unique that most people, including seasoned film buffs, had never really seen anything like it before. And so that's kind of how I felt about it. It was really influential on me.
Nice.
So that's the first time I discovered Nolan, and I'd say the way I view him is, I think I view him as actually an important person because that might sound kind of weird, but I think every generation, at least for the past half century or so, has probably kind of, I don't know, viewed a certain filmmaker as kind of representative of their generation, and I feel like Christopher Nolan could really be that for us, for people like us who kind of have come of age during his... We've come of age as people during the same time that he's come of age as a filmmaker, and he can be very representative of our generation, in my opinion. So
Nice.
It's
that's
also
how I think of
interesting.
him.
It's also interesting that you discovered him in high school, while and we're all the same age. I discovered him in college. So that's an interesting perspective because I agree with that. He is important to our generation. But in 2001, I was kind of I was getting into Quentin Tarantino. You know what I mean? That was kind of where I developed a love for film in the way I do now.
Okay.
And caring about who directed it was probably after I saw Pulp Fiction.
Right. Huh. All right. So I meant to mention this at Batman Begins, but what did you guys think of the ending to Batman Begins, the setup of the Joker? How do you feel about that? And going into The Dark Knight, what were you expecting out of Heath Ledger? That's a big conversation, but just first, what did you think of the setup of being the Joker?
I thought that it was, again, at the time I wasn't sure that it was a prequel or not, and I thought that it was intending to set us up and say, this is how we get to Tim Burton's Batman.
Oh, yeah.
And I was wondering where that was going to fit into the timeline. Other than that, I didn't think much of it until we got Heath Ledger announcements and things like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I had a similar opinion of it. I didn't think much of it. I'm not real crazy about blatant scenes like that where it's just like, hey, we're setting up the next one. I would prefer that a setup for a sequel is more natural, like you work it into the story more. I think that's a better way to go. So I'm not a big fan of those kind of scenes in general. Sometimes they're fun, sometimes they annoy me, but this one, I guess I liked the rest of the movie so much that I didn't let it bother me. That's kind of how I felt about it. And I was very excited that they were going to have the Joker as, the Joker was going to be in it, definitely. That got me excited. So
I agree with you that some are bothersome, but I think this was a fun one. I like the way they revealed the card, and it didn't feel to me, again, because I was in the mindset of this could be a setup to go into Tim Burton's Batman. It felt not throwaway is the word I'm looking for, but it felt just like, hey, here's a wink to the fans. In the same way that in Back to the Future, when he comes back and says, "We got to go to the future," it's not you, it's your kids, which was not planned for a sequel whatsoever. They just thought it was a funny line. And I feel like the Joker card was just a cool idea.
Okay.
Interesting. I saw it strictly as setting up the sequel.
Oh, really?
I did, and I felt like, and I mean, it gave us a lot to think about in the 3 years between the two movies. It kind of gave the fans something to clamor for and all that, and speculate. It was. I hesitate to say that it's a good marketing tool, but it functioned as a good marketing tool. But let's get away from that. Let's talk about The Dark Knight, because we kind of went on a tangent there, and yeah. But so The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight has been called the greatest thing. It's been referred to as better than Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Reviews, of course, from my cousin who's 7.
Oh, wow.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome.
It really is. It's when it was being hyped up and everything, pre-release, people were saying that it's one of the best crime movies since Heat or Goodfellas, I guess, or another crime movie.
Mm-hmm.
And like that just got me so amped up for it and so excited for it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it looked amazing, and it does look amazing. And it was amazing.
I've always said that it is very much a crime thriller that just happens to feature Batman.
Yeah.
It's not so
Cool.
much. I mean, it is not a comic book movie. It is not a superhero movie.
Right.
It's a crime thriller featuring Batman and Batman
Right.
characters.
I feel like it can't be defined as one thing. I think it's too dynamic of a film to be classified by common nomenclature. I think it has to be its own classification, really. That's how good. It's a psychological thriller. It's an action movie. It's a crime movie. It's this and that. It's so many things that you can't just put it into one box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's pretty clear that the three of us all thought it was better than Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that true for you guys? I had a friend who loved Breaking Bad, who loved Batman Begins so much that he thought Batman Begins was the better movie after seeing The Dark Knight.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's the one.
And I tried to see. He is the one. Yeah. I tried to see his point. He said that he liked the plot of the first one. He thought it was very cool the way it was intertwined, and how the blue lotus flower came back toward the end, and the fear and all that stuff was very cool. And he's right in that The Dark Knight is not about plot. You know, it's a character driven piece. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave him that, but as a character driven piece, it's such a better movie.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Near
I agree.
perfect. I mean, it's a near perfect movie.
Agreed. That's an interesting point that you bring that up, because it's, I think at least for us, at least I'm assuming for us, that it's so hard for us to look at, to juxtapose those two movies objectively, because Dark Knight has just overtaken the trilogy and become its own thing. It's not a. It's almost like it's not a. They don't even call it the Batman trilogy. They call it the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
that.
So yeah, and I think I'll let Matt talk about this, but you said that it's a character-driven story, Mike, and that's right. It's Matt, after we saw it the first time, Matt and I saw it in the theater. Matt said that it was the Joker's movie. It wasn't a Batman movie. It was a Joker movie. So Matt can talk about that.
It was definitely the Joker's movie, and it was also Heath Ledger's. And
yeah,
it was. I mean, he was just phenomenal. I mean, he was just incredible. And just the way that the character was written was just perfect. I mean, it was just a perfect. I think I used this comparison before, but it was a perfect blend of just an actor performing at his height for a director and writer who is also kind of at his peak at the time. and it was just this beautiful blend of just absolutely astonishing performance and direction. And I mean, there's so much to the Joker, to the performance of it, at least to Heath Ledger's performance, that it was just you have to see it several times to really appreciate the amount of work that went into that, creating that character. Like that scene where he has the newscaster. I believe it's a newscaster, and he has the handheld camera, and he's taunting him and all that. Or no, not news.
It's a Batman impersonator.
It's the Batman impersonator. Yeah, sorry, my bad. When he has the Batman impersonator and he has the handheld camera, I mean, like there's so much like that. That's the best. Like they really created the sense of fear that the Joker has. Like he's this wild, chaotic being, and he's taunting this helpless guy who's just, I mean, he's a little crazy because he's dressing up like Batman, but he's also, I mean, he's well intentioned, but
Batman's a little crazy, but that's a whole other conversation. But go ahead.
Yeah. Right. But in I swear, like, I've seen the movie countless times. I mean, I could count the times, but I've seen it an obscene amount of times. And just about every single time, whenever the Joker says, when he's taunting the guy and he's like, "Look at me!" it just startles me every time. And I'm like, it's crazy. I've gotten into the habit of yelling that at my nephew. My sister doesn't really like that.
So that movie made, my numbers could be off here, $7 trillion. Is that correct?
I think it was $7.5.
$7.5 trillion. So it made a bunch of money, and then of course it spawned 1 billion Joker Halloween costumes for years to come. And I remember, in a weird way, having this strange aversion to that, like so many emo kids, and I hate to use the phrase because that's so stupid, but so many emo kids, scene kids, whatever, dressing up as the Joker like that was the only good thing in the movie. And that really bugged me because it's not. Because there's so much more to the movie. And as much as I loved the Joker and as much as he deserved his posthumous Oscar and as much as he did steal every scene he was in, my favorite line is toward the end when Commissioner Gordon, I guess he's commissioner by then, says people deserve to have their faith rewarded. I love that. I love that's Batman's whole thing. While the movie is the Joker's movie, what Batman is trying to say in this movie is that people shouldn't fear all the time like they did in Batman Begins. And there is chaos, but sometimes there needs to be someone there to just say it's okay, even when it's not, to just make people feel better, to make people's lives easier. It goes back to Batman caring about this city and just wanting what's best for the people in the city.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I agree.
So lots of funny enough. Let me tell one quick anecdote, and I'll let you talk. Funny enough, I said anybody who still dresses as a Joker is a douchebag or something like that. And the woman I'm about to marry dated a guy who dressed as the Joker, and so I was kind of like, oh yeah, like I won that
nice.
Nice.
Yeah,
little personal victory.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Nice. I never once dressed like the Joker.
Yeah. One thing that a lot of people bring up when they talk about The Dark Knight is the comparison of Jack Nicholson's Joker to Heath Ledger's Joker.
Thank you for bringing it up.
I know a lot of people bring it up, and I just think, this is just my opinion, but I just don't think they're very comparable. I think they're two different characters when you think about it, because Jack Nicholson's was more of the comedic side of the Joker, as well as he had a dark side as well, obviously, but they emphasized the comedic, the joke telling, the one-liner Joker, as opposed to Heath Ledger's was they emphasized the psychosis and the mania of the character, as opposed to the actual joking side, the comedic side of it. And it's just, they're two different characters, really. And I don't think you need to pick a favorite, really. I don't think you need to say one is better than the other. That's just how I feel about it. What do you guys think?
I agree, and I would like to kind of extrapolate that to the entire. I hate this word so much, but I hate this word, but the entire Nolan verse of Batman, because people compare it to there's comparisons to Schumacher's Batmans, to Burton's Batmans, but they're not comparable at all because it's like Nolan has created this world, this Gotham world that's very much his own thing. Mm-hmm. It's his own vision of it. It's not it can't be compared to the kind of there's kind of a comic book renaissance of comic book movies, I guess. Mm-hmm. Or at least this is the golden age of it, I guess. But like people take it more seriously, and it's partly because of Nolan. Mm-hmm. It's just more grounded in reality, and you can't really compare the two.
You know what's interesting is what it can be compared to. It more so than the Tim Burton and the Joel Schumacher versions films are the comic books. These are certainly more faithful to the comic books. In particular, the Killing Joke. In the Killing Joke, the Joker, we get an origin, but it's also a vague origin and multiple.
I've actually read that one.
Yeah, it's really good. It ends weird. It ends with like Batman and the Joker just laughing at each other. But you get that in the Joker. You get the two versions. It's also based on loosely on The Long Halloween, which is kind of the de-evolution of Harvey Dent into Two-Face, which we haven't even mentioned yet. Okay. And I love.
Yeah.
Wow.
What'd you think of Aaron Eckhart, guys?
It's great.
Awesome. He was very good. I think. I will say I think that character could have been played by any number of actors, whereas the Joker was so inherently Heath Ledger's that it's easy to. I just think it could have been played by any number of actors, but it could have also been played very poorly by any number of actors. But Aaron Eckhart clearly had his heart in that role, and I remember reading in interviews, so many people focused on the Joker in that, and Heath Ledger and stuff like that. They focused on that with that film, and I remember reading an interview with Aaron Eckhart where he was just so happy to be there because because not because he wasn't necessarily a household name at the time, but because his favorite actor is Gary Oldman.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
He just I remember him being in the interview just saying, every chance I got, I was asking Gary about. I was asking him about Sid and Nancy. I was asking him about True Romance. I was asking him about just what he does to be an actor. And nice. I think at one point he said, "I think the guy kind of hates me now." But it was just really, I really appreciated Aaron Eckhart after I read that interview that he gave. So I like the guy. I think he's great.
I will say I liked him. I liked him as Harvey Dent better, I think, than Two-Face. He played just a guy pretty well, but when he was going around roughing up all the suspects, I feel like when he would get angry, it was a little over the top.
A little bit,
yeah. Maybe it wasn't his strong suit, but he didn't. I wouldn't say he ruined it, or he didn't. I think he did it justice, but not as well as maybe somebody else could have. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But anyone in that role would have been under the shadow of Heath Ledger.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
True.
So yeah. Yeah. Anything else about Dark Knight, or should we move on?
I mean, there's so much.
There's so much. We could devote.
Yeah. We could do a review and then just talk about every little aspect and talk about.
Yeah.
I do want to mention that it is the movie of the three. I know there were several scenes in Batman Begins filmed in Chicago, and very few, I think, of The Dark Knight Rises filmed in Chicago, if any.
None.
But the bulk of The Dark Knight was filmed in Chicago, and I just love it because I'm such a Chicago homer, and just like when they're going down to, what do they call it, Lower Fifth or whatever, it's so clearly Lower Wacker Avenue, and just like the city skyline when he's up on top of the buildings, it's just awesome. I feel like Batman is saving my city because I recognize all the buildings and the streets and things. It's
That's great.
Nice.
And the scene where where the Joker escapes from the prison and he's driving around and the music cuts out except for the Joker note, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he's just waving his hair in the wind and all that stuff. It is Streets of Chicago. It feels like the Blues Brothers.
It really does. I agree. I when I watched it, it felt like Chicago. It didn't look like Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Interesting.
Which I don't know if that's a good thing. I guess, you know, Batman Begins felt like Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We could talk about that. I feel like Batman Begins was the best depiction of Gotham as something that you can't really put a finger on. And I like that they changed the places in all three movies where they filmed. You know, Pittsburgh was the last one. I feel like Batman Begins was very Gotham-y.
Yeah,
true.
I agree. Yeah, I can only hope that Superman versus Batman is filmed in Indianapolis, so that I can feel like it's saving my city.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, shall we move on to Inception?
Totally.
Inception.
Yeah, that's Quentin Tarantino's a good starting point, I guess, for any film buff. But that's interesting, Tiny. About I like the way that you describe that, being that we've come of age as movie buffs in with the either coincidental or accidental insurgence of or insistence of Nolan's work, or if it's directly responsible. If he's directly responsible for it. It's an interesting viewpoint. It's not one I'd really considered.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
As for me, my first experience with Nolan was also Memento, and also in high school. I remember I'd heard about it because this is like Tiny said. This is when I started kind of cultivating my movie fandom. Like I was coming of age as a movie buff, as the best way to describe it. Kudos to Tiny.
And well, never mind.
Okay. and so I'd heard
it's
like
a family show.
Yeah. So I at the time I was like kind of browsing the IMDb message boards, basically just soaking up any discussions of movies that I could. And I just heard whispers about this Memento movie. It's like, oh, it's this amazing movie. It's a high concept noir movie that's told in reverse, and it's very, very, very interesting and very spectacular. So I just saw it on it was on like HBO or something, and this was like 2001, 2002. And I recorded, or I don't know if I recorded it because I don't know if DVR was a thing yet, but I watched it. Like, it was like 3 a.m. I think, and I just watched it, and I was just like, I was blown away. And then I heard that he was making Batman, and I was just like, all right, okay. And it was interesting because when I went to see Batman Begins, I didn't expect much because I felt like he was. I almost felt, and this is blasphemous, but I felt like he was kind of cashing in on it. Like, okay, he made it. He made his art movie with Memento, and I didn't know about Insomnia yet, but I was just like, okay, well, that's kind of a weird choice, but maybe he's just going mainstream. And as we'll discuss, it's not mainstream. Not at least. It's not the cash in that I expected it to be.
It's not a cash in.
That's what I meant.
Mainstream.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. It wasn't a cash in. It wasn't Joel Schumacher Batman. It was he left his mark, and he's continuing to leave his mark on film and everything. All right, now we come to The Prestige. This came
my favorite
right off
Edward Norton and Jessica Biel movie.
Oh, jeez. Reference to The Illusionist. That's one of those instances where Hollywood kind of, either by happenstance or by sheer ripoff, released two movies somewhat identical to each other within a short time frame.
And they tried to make it seem like they weren't similar, but it's two movies about two magicians Come on.
They're
like
both-
Victorian era
Yeah, they were both period pieces.
magicians. Even
Exactly.
yeah.
yeah, I don't really even remember
Exactly.
The Illusionist, but
Yeah, I don't own it or anything.
I remember kind of liking it.
Yeah.
we'll save that for the Ed Norton episode.
Yeah.
But the thing about The Prestige is this came right after Nolan really struck it big with Batman Begins. It was kind of the start of him being kind of a household name for film buffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like he left his mark on Batman, or he started to leave his mark on Batman, and now he kind of dialed it back a little bit with The Prestige, which is still kind of a mind-bending movie.
Mm-hmm.
Brought back Christian Bale, got Hugh Jackman in on it, got Piper Perabo and Scarlett Johansson, and Michael Caine came back. It was also kind of the semi-start to more. It was the second movie that had Michael Caine in it that Nolan did, and he's been in every Nolan movie since.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said Piper Perabo.
Oh really? What did I
That's
say?
not Perabo?
Perabo?
I thought
I don't know.
I don't know. I thought it was Parabo as well.
I'll ask her next time I'm
There you
having coffee with her
Yeah.
or on a date with her. But yeah, it's got Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale and Coyote Ugly in it. So what did you guys think of The Prestige?
Go ahead, Mike.
I haven't seen it in a couple of years. In fact, I've only seen it twice. And I remember loving most of it, but not liking some of the ambiguities about it. And I think that's not fair. I think sometimes you have to appreciate ambiguities in movies. But I just wanted to know, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, every time Angier dies, which version dies? And we never know. We don't know. And to me, that's frustrating because he makes such a point out of wanting to be the one that gets all the glory and all the fame. So which Angier are we to believe dies every time? Because I also think it's pretty clear that it's random which dies every time. So then does the original Hugh Jackman not get the adoration every time? That bothered me at the end of the movie. And so when I stack Christopher Nolan's movies, this one is not at the top.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. Which Angier it is that dies at the end. That's good pickup by you, Mike.
Thank you. And at the end of the movie, he's cloning himself, but he's on the stage, but then he's also up in the rafters, but then he's also here, he's also there. I think, and I could be wrong because it's been a while since I've seen it, but the way I took it is that it's pretty clear that it is random which version of Angier dies. And that bugged me because I always felt bad for the original one.
Interesting.
I guess I hadn't put that much thought into it.
Me neither.
Sorry.
No,
That's
it's good.
It's interesting. It's interesting because he's essentially the villain of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
it's-
antagonist is the better.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. He is the antagonist, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know which version is him, and I appreciate the ambiguity of it, though. I guess if I'm remembering it correctly, because it kind of leaves it open to our interpretation of it, which I'm always fond of those kinds of movies. I know people. That's an unpopular opinion for ambiguity in terms of movies, but I like having something to think about afterwards.
True. True. Have either of you? That movie's based on a book, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have either of you read that or know anything about it? Really?
Never read it.
No.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. And by the way, just real quick, this has been bugging me since we did the Yahoo Answers episode last week, or last time we did the Yahoo Answers one. When the possible troll mentioned basing Nolan basing his work on other people's writings, that should not disqualify or hamper anyone's enjoyment of him as a director in any case.
Absolutely.
It just bugged me. But
I agree.
if you want to hear more about us ranting about Yahoo Answers people, listen to that episode.
Definitely.
But about The Prestige, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It took me a couple viewings to really appreciate it, which is kind of rare, a rarity for me when it comes to Nolan. Because the first time I saw it, I thought it was a good movie, but it didn't grab me the way that Batman Begins grabbed me or Memento grabbed me. But upon rewatching it, I kind of saw kind of more the machinations that went through Nolan's brain or whatever when he created it or when he filmed it and made it, and you can appreciate it on a performance level because it's about two performers who are at each other's throats, and they're kind of going after each other, and there's a good chemistry there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman are really good at playing up that dueling kind of
rivalry.
Thank you. Are really good at playing up that rivalry.
I agree. All of the performances were really good in it. Everyone, but I would say the strength is actually Hugh Jackman in it. Even though you can make the argument that Christian Bale plays two different characters, and he has the juggling act, if you will, pun intended, of playing the two different people and trying to mimic the emotions through both characters. But I think the deeper evolution is with Hugh Jackman's character. What he goes through, and he turns himself into the villain, to borrow a phrase from Nolan's canon, if you will.
Right.
But I think the performance is better by Hugh Jackman. I know a lot of people give Hugh Jackman crap, and I don't understand it because I think he's.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I think he's first of all, right. First of all, I think he's a really good actor, and secondly, watch an interview with him. He's probably one of the nicest human beings on the planet.
Nice.
And always thoroughly enjoys everything he does.
Yeah, and he never says anything bad about anybody.
No.
He's always positive. So, but yeah, and I think The Prestige is one of his better roles in my opinion. So
yeah, and if anyone wants to question their enjoyment of Hugh Jackman or whatever, just watch his even the opening bit on when he hosted the Oscars.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That whole song and dance, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
it was.
That, and also his entire performance in Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Just amazing performance, and he really shines in The Prestige as well. Like you said, turning himself into the villain and all that.
Or last year's Oscars, when Jennifer Lawrence tripped on the steps, he's the only person who rushed up to stage to help her.
Oh.
That's right. I
was
remember that.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, he is so awesome.
Yeah,
that's cute. He is awesome. He's just the best.
Ish.
He is. Yeah.
So I'm looking at trying to figure out the ending a little bit more, but I'm reading this line that says that Angier specifically says, "It took great courage to go inside the machine, not knowing whether you'll come out and listen to the uproar or whether you would end up inside the water." I think that's pretty clear that it's random, but I guess does it clone their consciousness as well?
Jeez, I don't know. We'd probably have to read the book to find out.
We need to find someone who was on the movie and rough up a suspect and get some information.
Nice.
Right. We definitely need to do that.
Did you guys? I've heard this from some people before, but did you feel like the kind of the twist, if you will, at the end, which I didn't necessarily think it was much of a twist, but the twist at the end that Christian Bale was. His character was two people. He had a twin, if you will. Did you guys think that was kind of duh? Obviously. I mean, I thought it was so obvious that there were two. There were twins because the character of Fallon was so just looked like a kind of like a chubby Christian Bale with a lot of hair and glasses.
I guess I was distracted by everything that Angier's Hugh Jackman was going through. that I didn't really notice. It was kind of like, oh, okay. But a lot of people complained that while we got that realism, that the movie kind of cheated when it came to science fiction. You know, when the science fiction element was introduced.
Yeah,
that the movie kind of cheats
kind of, yeah.
way. And so, like, I appreciate the reveal of the twist. Which, to answer your question, yeah, I guess it did kind of get me a little bit. But I also feel like it cheated.
Okay.
I feel like it was a magic trick. It was they misdirected us with Fallon.
It's an illusion, Matt. It's called an illusion.
It's an illusion. No, but I just thought it was well executed in my opinion. I didn't expect that he had a twin or anything like that. It kind of it played itself out well for me. I felt like it may have been just a little in that first viewing. I felt like it was a little forced. Mm-hmm. But then when I rewatched it, I saw how the pieces fit together and how, like when he ties the rope and it's all comes back to being just an accident of not knowing which knot to tie. That just kind of brings it all together for me. And I understand, yeah, the sci-fi element is a little bit of a reach or a little bit of a stretch for the story that they're telling, I guess. But also, I thought it worked well in its favor upon review. But in that first viewing or even first couple viewings, it kind of seemed maybe a little bit off key a bit, if you will.
Okay.
Let's analyze the three parts of the magic trick and why the movie is called The Prestige.
Yes.
All right. Every great magic trick consists of three parts or acts. The first is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, a deck of cards, a bird, or a man. He shows you this object. Perhaps he asks you to inspect it to see if it is indeed real, unaltered, normal. But of course, it probably isn't. I won't go on. The second act is called the turn. The magician takes ordinary something, makes it do something extraordinary. Now you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it because, of course, you're not really looking. You don't really want to know. You want to be fooled, but you wouldn't clap yet because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back. That's why every great magic trick has a third act. The hardest part, the part we call the prestige.
Nice.
What's the prestige
nice.
in this movie?
I would say the prestige is Christian Bale being a twin.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Kind of, like I said, it's kind of the seeing the inner workings of what happened. Seeing it being pieced together like that is kind of gives you a sense of kind of coming full circle with the story that's being told.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say it has to be that Christian Bale's character was a twin because that's the only magic trick that takes the entire movie to tell.
Right.
So that's what it pretty much has to be that.
Okay. Would the turn be would that be the cloning?
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I would say the turn is Tesla. Maybe. You know, when they're introduced to the character of Tesla and they realize that, you know, there's more to magic than just trickery. It's they're like you said, there's like a sci-fi aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's what I would say, you know. Okay.
Huh.
And then the presentation would be the death of Angier's wife, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what it was? The presentation? Is that what it's called?
The pledge.
The pledge.
The pledge.
The first part is called the pledge.
The first part is called the pledge.
The pledge.
Good old Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
I love Michael
Can't go
Caine.
wrong with him.
No.
He's the best. Michael Caine never looks like he's acting. He looks like he just is that like I don't know, he just looks like he's just showing up to work and just reading some lines. Not that he's I don't know, I buy every single character he ever plays.
Right.
He's just a great actor.
Yep.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Moving on.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts on The Prestige?
I think it's treated like Nolan's redheaded stepchild, but it should not be. I think it's one of his better movies, personally.
It's his really cute adopted child. Adapted child. Ooh,
Nice.
Zing.
Wordplay.
Nice.
Thanks.
It's I feel like, and this is gonna sound like a dig at him, but I don't mean this by any way because I do like the movie quite a bit. But I feel like it's his what I did on my summer break between Batman Begins and Dark Knight.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know it sounds awful, but I mean that's just.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's a smaller movie. It's
Sometimes what you do on your summer break is really awesome.
exactly. I mean, I loved summer vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you really find yourself.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, shall we move on to the Dark Knight?
Let's do it.
So, next up, I wanted to talk about theater experiences, because I like to talk about how I've seen every Nolan movie except for Following and Insomnia in a theater, and I mean it's just
I've done the same.
Really
I'm pretty sure I've done the same. Yeah.
nice. Okay,
Not intentionally, not to seek out.
right.
No.
I didn't intentionally do that until The Prestige, probably. So like with me, I mean, like, well, we've talked about it before, but Inception was a memorable experience just because kids were being obnoxious in the theater and it was crowded. But and then we've also talked about The Dark Knight Rises. Midnight viewing was just really spectacular, and of course, Memento, seeing it at college was really cool. But I want to mention just briefly The Prestige. It was funny because I saw it, like, I barely made it to like an 8 o'clock showing at a dollar theater, a second run theater, and all that, and then I just kind of left the theater. Kind of felt like a Nolan movie, but it was just like, that's when I noticed, like, okay, I'm seeking this guy's work out, like, because I raced to go see it and all that. And granted, it was late in its theatrical run, but still, I mean, it was still significant. If you guys didn't notice, this episode was edited in a manner befitting Nolan, in that it was a reference to his early movie Memento. Hope you guys didn't mind. Hope that wasn't too jarring for you. But yeah, as always, you can reach us on Twitter at I'm at Obsessive Viewer, Tiny's at Obsessive Tiny, and Mike is at I am Mike White. You can also like the blog on Facebook. And you can email us any questions, comments, concerns, gripes, suggestions, anything at ovpodcast@gmail.com. And we like hearing from you. Also, hit us with a review on iTunes, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Thanks for listening. Bye.